Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to this edition of SportsView on Monday, the 2nd of October, 2023. When you say it like that, where is the year gone? It's the 10th month we're on now. Good evening, Joe Waters, and welcome.
Good evening, Pat. Thank you.
Great to see you again. And I think we're fine tonight anyway. The other two lads are off celebrating, I think. We won't wrong them. Anyway, we're covering the usual suspects: soccer, golf, a bit of rugby. The Rugby World Cup is coming to a crunch time now the weekend, and tennis and snooker. But Joe, our misgivings about VAR was brought into sharp focus over the weekend again, which was probably one of the most scandalous decisions since the infamous handball of our friend Henri against the Republic of Ireland in Paris there a couple of years ago, in my opinion.
Well, it was a pretty bad one. There's no explaining it from perspective. But again, it's like we've talked about though before. If they are communicating with each other, which is what happened, was it was a miscommunication, I guess, in the finish between the VAR guys in the box and the referee on the pitch. And the VAR guy thought that what he was doing, he was being asked to verify if it was a goal, and he said yes. And I think the referee mistook that for, was he offside? He thought he was checking for offside. And that's the thing that happened with it. So, I mean, we're talking about VAR and all that stuff, but, in reality, there's a couple of things that went on, and
they had two players sent off as well, Liverpool.
Right. And the red card to, was it Curtis Jones got the first red card?
Yeah.
And, to me, that's a red card. I mean, he's gone over the top of the ball, whether it's accidental or not. In the way that the referee games today and the way they're calling it, that is, and the beauty of referees, and what I loved about the referees when they could make their own decisions, was that everything happened in real time.
Yeah.
So your decision was in real time, right? Well, the decision for VAR was not in real time. It was looked at and it was stopped and it was slow motion. And then, Jurgen Klopp is complaining afterwards that the game is played in real time, so they should not have looked at it. They should not be looking at the still photograph, which looks terrible because, I mean, that could have ended that guy's career. I mean,
there's no doubt about that, There's no doubt about that, yeah. I mean, there's nobody would condone a tackle as we see him a lot in junior soccer here around the area, And
yeah.
I'm not haranguing juniors. I'm not putting it down, but I'm just saying that that tackle can really put you out of work if you're working for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Oh, yes, it can. Yes, it can. And I mean, if that one goes as bad as it can go, I mean, we're lucky there that Curtis Jones is not a very hefty young man.
No.
I mean, he's slight, frame and what have you. So he didn't have a lot of blunt force behind it, but it's the action of going over the ball and going high to start off with that was that got him in trouble.
I suppose, Joe, I would both agree that the red card for the sending off was under the rules was justified.
Yeah, I think so.
But we've spoken.
As was the second one. I mean, you make two daft tackles in a space of a short time, then you're asking for trouble.
You are. If you're on a yellow card, you know that yourself. We said it. If you're on a yellow card, there's no doubt about it. First of all, the referee and linesmen are aware that you're on a yellow card. Number two, all the people at the match knows you're on a yellow card. So if you go into any tackle, the crowd are on your are up on top of you, and that's curtains really for you,
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But there's no getting away from the fact that of all the weekends for Liverpool, what I would say to be robbed of a potential win in the light of the other results that Man City were beaten,
Yeah.
and, and in the light of all that as well, it could make a huge, massive difference at the end of the season. I mean, 2 points taken off you, and as we said before, there's a linesman and a referee. They were well able to cope with offside up to before VAR ever came in, and I don't see anything wrong with them legislating that before. I think we both agree that VAR would be necessary in the penalty box situation. Whether the ball crossed the line or whether it's penalty. Other than that, I wouldn't use it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certain, for goals, that the difference in goals is so hard to come by anyway.
Yeah,
that would be an area that you would want people to be taking a look at. But they took a look at this and they managed to mess it up. So it's I mean, the reality is it's not going to go away. I mean, it's here for good now.
It is
because they're all using it, so it's not going to.
But Spurs were the beneficiaries of VAR the weekend,
Yeah.
And, at the moment, we're on air here on Monday, the 2nd of October. Don't forget to press the red button on the right hand side, subscribe to our channel, and thank you in anticipation of that. Chelsea are 2-0 ahead in their Premiership match tonight against Fulham at the moment. So they're going well, Chelsea. They're going well tonight anyway, But the table is Man City now have 18 points, Tottenham have 17, Arsenal have 17, Liverpool have 16, but they should be a giant top tonight in our opinion, Aston Villa had a good win. They're on 15 points. Brighton are on 15. West Ham 13. Newcastle 12. Crystal Palace 11. And Man United 9 in 10th place. And Luton Town, of course, I'm blowing the trumpet for Luton Town. They're not as bad as the match of the day people make out. Not one swallow makes a summer, but they had a reasonably good win. And I think they'll have a few more as well. They're getting their act together. It takes a while for a club to adjust to life in the fast lane, and I think there's a few more players coming into the club. So who knows? Happy days, They're off the bottom. They're off the bottom three. Leicester City. I saw the Leicester City Blackburn match, Joe, and they did very well.
They did very well. Played well. Scored some good goals.
Yeah, they did.
It's good to see them up there.
Yeah, and I think they'll come back up. I'm not saying this is very early in the season to say with 40 odd games to go, but they're looking well. That's the message from them. Celtic Rangers sacked their manager in Scotland. I don't know why they did that so early in the season.
Well, I mean, it's the same old. I mean, we've seen this before on the other side of it, where when Liam Brady was manager of Celtic and Rangers were flying at the time, I mean, I read one of the things online this morning where a Rangers fan is having a rant, and that the league is over in October. We've got no chance of winning it, So that's why that it's happened, because I mean, I don't know if you saw them in the European games they played, but they were very poor in those.
I did. I saw them. They were looked totally disorganized. They looked like a junior side who were just off of pre-season. They looked very, very poor in comparison to other teams, other club teams from what we call lesser leagues.
Yeah.
And there are two teams in Scotland. Well, Celtic fans would say there's only one, but we say there's Celtic and Rangers are traditional powerhouses, and really, I suppose you do pay the price. It's like Man United. Man United are still in a lot of trouble.
Well, but United are a little bit like the teams that have come up from the championship, they've had a lot of players come in. They've had a lot of injuries, and once they settle into some kind of a rhythm and what have you, I mean, they played great against Crystal Palace in midweek. They had their chances over the weekend to win the game again, just couldn't put one away. But they'll be fine once they get their players, pulling in the right direction. I think with the midfield guys that he's got now, it's going to be that's going to make a big difference to him.
They were unlucky for 2 goals, in fairness. I know you make your own luck in the match, but they were unlucky, Man United. But it was nice to see a hero of mine, Roy Hodgson's, shaking hands at the end of the match, after pulling out 3 points from Old Trafford.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Roy before, I mean, Roy's a terrific coach. He's done a great job wherever he's been.
Yeah.
And he's, and having played United in midweek, he and Ray Lewington would have come up with a plan to, counteract whatever United did in midweek against them. And they came back out and they were firing, scored a great goal.
I mean, the surprise to me was the Man City result. I mean, I don't expect them to win every single football match they play, but with all due respects to Wolverhampton Wanderers, my eyebrows went up all right when they won the match. I didn't see much soccer Saturday. I was traveling all day Saturday, but I caught up with them Saturday night. But I thought. With the team they have and with the talent they have, really, I think that's 3 points they left behind them without a shadow of a doubt. Haaland doesn't seem to be playing well.
No, he's not. And he's
is he one of those one season wonders?
Oh, I don't think so. No, he's too good for that. But it's like. It's like all strikers, Sometimes you go through just a barren patch, and you just want the ball to hit you on the backside and go in the back of the net, and all of a sudden it changes your look. I mean, he was getting on the end of stuff yesterday, but just not connecting on it.
Right.
But no, he'll be fine. I mean, they're struggling just a little bit with a few injuries. They've got guys coming back as well, but they're going to be fine. I mean, Wolves played really well.
They're a solid enough team too. Wolves,
yeah.
solid enough. And
so it's it's in 38 games, you're not going to win every one of them.
Yeah.
So you take it. You take it and you lose one and you pick yourself up and you win the next one.
Yeah.
I'd be more worried about City if they were drawing 3 or 4 in a row, something like that. And now you're dropping 8 points over a 6 to 8 point or more points than you want to with draws going in. So, so 6 or 8 points you're dropping instead of just 3.
Yeah.
And you can fix that in one game. So,
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen far indeed. I mean, the Championship and League One and League Two, they seem to play their games. I'm not saying there isn't controversy in those games as well, but the law is all when you have human beings, you always have a bit of controversy anyway. What both of us could see something different in every match we look at.
And that's the beauty of it, I mean, that's what the thing for me for VAR, it's taking some of the joy out of the game.
Yeah.
Because it's taking too long now for people to come to a decision where after every goal it's reviewed, and the sheer joy for the crowd and for the players involved in the goal is diminished because it needs that extra time, whereas before it was only the referee could make that happen, and it didn't happen that often. But now it's practically every goal.
I noticed myself in some of the Premiership matches, as soon as the goal is scored, the crowd look up at the big screen.
Yeah.
For review.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, the sheer joy of dribbling past a couple of defenders and hitting the top right-hand corner of the net, and someone's big toe might be offside, you know?
Yeah.
It's as you said, the joy and the spontaneity is going out of it as well, you know?
And that's the whole thing with it, you know? I mean, remember when we used to go to matches and something exciting would happen and half the crowd would move to a different spot because you're being pushed by everybody behind you because they're all trying to see what went on.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, that's the whole beauty of being at the game is that you see the things. And like you say, we all see something differently, you know, and that's the beauty of it.
Now, SportsView is the program, onlinemedia.tv. Joe Waters and myself are here tonight, and for you. And thank you for all the views, and thank you for all the things. The numbers are spectacular. All down to Joe and the lads here. Very little to do with myself, I can tell you that much. We're going to move on quickly, Joe, to the Ryder Cup. And I saw a good bit of the golf, and I saw the end of it yesterday, you know, the last couple of holes. We have Shane Lowry and all the lads there, and McElroy and Hovland and all the lads, and Justin Rose in the picture. But it was very tight. They had a huge lead going into yesterday's singles, and they divided the singles between them, which is a testament of the how good the Americans were and how they didn't fire on the Friday and the Saturday, you know. So I mean, did you see much of it, Joe?
I did, and you know, I mean, Europe obviously got off to a great start.
They did, yeah.
You know, and once you get out the traps like that, and you know, you get points under your belt, then it's very difficult to haul it back. And of course, the US was banking, I think, on the singles matches on the last day that they were going to do that, but they just gave themselves too much of a hole to dig out of. But I would say this much though. I mean, I really don't know what Zach Johnson was thinking about, because a lot of these guys haven't played for 4 or 5 weeks.
No.
And anyone that knows anything about any kind of a sport, you've got to have your eye in, you've got to be playing, you've got to have your repetitions going, and they just did not look at the races at all, you know. And
I missed the presence of Sergio Garcia. His great passion. Yeah, and I missed the team news of Ian Poulter as well on the European side. You know.
Yeah.
It was a bit sad for me, you know. And on the American side, certainly they missed the likes of Phil Mickelson, who was a great team player, DJ Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Reed. There was a lot of golfers on the American side that they could have done with, you know.
But, well, you know, I mean, I was reading, you know, just leading up to the actual event itself. Mm-hmm. That I mean, I know there's controversy between the Live Tour and what have you, but Zach Johnson only concentrated on the non-live players and players that won the major. He never looked at any of the live players that were you know, that could have played in it. So that seemed to be you know, a poor decision. Now, whether he was told that from above or not,
there's no doubt in my mind.
But it's an interesting. There was an interesting one when Kupka talked about, you know, he said, well, all the live guys had the same opportunity that I did, because the question was put to him. He said, we noticed that you didn't fly in with the team, that you flew in on your own. And he said, oh, I didn't notice that. And him being the only live guy that was playing in it. And he's his point was that these live guys all could have won a major, and any one of them could have won the majors, and they would have been here as well. So he doesn't make that big a deal about it.
No.
But I did see a little bit, and I saw one interesting thing where there was an article, I think it was in the Irish Independent, about the fun has gone out of the Ryder Cup because there's been no drama on the final day. There's been too many points between the teams. Not since the mid 90s has it been exciting at the end. Yeah. And an interesting kind of comment that was made in it was about maybe it's time. There were two different things.
Right.
One was the home field advantage, the home course advantage.
Yeah.
And people on the home course advantage have won the majority of them recently. Yeah. And so we're talking about the possibility of playing it at a neutral place, which would be interesting for golf, I suppose. And then the other side to it was, what about if we included Live in it as another team?
Well, as we know, Joe, the Ryder Cup was Great Britain and Ireland for years,
Yes.
Until it was almost dead in its feet.
Right.
And then there was a revival of it, mainly as Darwin eloquently said us one night about Seve Ballesteros and the European connection to broaden it out as a Europe team, and that gave it a new lease of life. But it has disappointed the last number of occasions. Now, the next event is in Bethpage in the USA, but then after that, we'll have it down here where we're broadcasting from, where I am, down here in the Deer Manor in Limerick. So that's 2027. We're counting down the busyness. We're counting down the days to it, So there you go. If we're all around and kicking and live and kicking, SportsView will be coming from, would it be great, from a Deer Manor in 2027. Hopefully we'll all be around and live and kicking for it. But it's the excitement is starting already here, because with business, with everything, with the airport, with Shannon Airport right beside the Deer Manor, they'll be landing in the airport. They'll be almost landing on the course, literally coming in. They'll be able to see the course coming in,
Yeah. Will there be enough room at Shannon for all the private aircraft that will be coming in for that?
Well, what we're talking about, your carbon footprint will be a fairly big one. It'll be a big footprint in Shannon for years to come. I don't think there's much talk about that. Not to dismiss it or anything. I'm saying that they're all cleaning and painting their houses now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And what shall I do? Realigning their attic into bedrooms. Their attic.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So there's always a few bucks to be made by wherever it's going anyway, But as I said, I think, as I agree with you, Joe, the excitement wasn't there.
Yeah, no, it would have been more a shock if Europe had folded and lost on the last day than it would have been, oh, what a great finish or what have you. Because, to be honest, I looked at it on Saturday and I went, these guys got no chance of coming back here. Our guys have been playing too well anyway. They just come out and they were just going lights out. Some of those young guys.
McIntyre was great. McIntyre from Scotland came of age as a golfer, in my opinion. He was excellent. So was young Auberg, who I had my doubts about, but he played fantastically well. Hovland played well. Lowry got his half pint yesterday, all square, and he was 4 down at one stage, Shane Lowry. Yeah. He was under his own pressure because a lot of people had disagreed with him being on the team, a lot of writers, commentators, and so he felt it. He felt that himself, But by God, he played out of his skin the last 3 or 4 holes, So they they all played their own part, really. But as you said, the cutting edge wasn't there. The excitement wasn't there, you know. I must say I enjoyed the Solheim Cup better.
Yeah.
That
was exciting stuff right down to
very good.
the end of it. You know, so
well,
but yeah, no, I mean Rory played great. He did a great job.
He had to play well because you know he had talked himself up.
Yeah.
So unfortunate. But there's too much talking sometimes. But he did play well.
Yeah.
When the chips were down, he came up trumps and got his points. And anyway, we look forward to Adair Manor 2027. You heard it here first. Lear Media SportsView is your Ryder Cup channel to be for all update information. We'll have all the inside track down here, you know. We'll have all the scandals.
Yeah.
And we'll have all the carbon footprints in 2027 here, you know. We'll have the whole lot, you know. Anyway, SportsView is the program on nearmedia.tv, and press the red button on the right hand side, subscribe to our channel. The Rugby World Cup is still going on in France, and next weekend we'll have Ireland versus Scotland, Wales versus Georgia, and England versus Samoa. Now we expect Ireland, Wales, and England to win those matches. There was some appalling one-sided games in the World Cup, which to me, you know, it doesn't do anything for the team that wins, and it most certainly does nothing for the team that loses. But to me, my team of the tournament so far, my team, a bit of fresh air, is Portugal.
Yeah.
They try to play the best expensive game rugby, and the French coach is Lagabesque. I forget his name now. I'm sounding like someone now who you know all the time, but I won't mention his name. But I'm not in the same position as he is. But the French coach, he himself played a starring role in 1987 World Cup when France beat Australia. I remember that match. That was a free-flowing match. The wonderful Serge Blanco was on that team as well, you know. They're a marvellous team. But Ireland, Scotland had their win, their expected win, 96, 19 or something like that. Just, the All Blacks, I mean, really. And South Africa won... was it 84-16 or something? These are astonishing scores to put up, you know. And you wouldn't see it in any sport. It's so one-sided, you know. You know.
It is. I mean, you know, if you look at it from you know, from a soccer perspective, you know, you're putting up 80 points. I mean, that is what? That's 10 goals. You know, in a national soccer match, would people put up with that? Would they pay money to go and see that? No.
Somebody would be like putting in Pike Rovers or Fairview Rangers with respect to them playing Brazil or England, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the disparity is, you know. That's unfortunate. You know, I don't know what the answer is. Well, in Europe, the answer is have an up and down system, as we said before, you know, have a tier 1 and a tier 2 competition, whereby you have an incentive or a goal to work towards, you know. Like if Portugal knew if they win the tier 2 competition, they're promoted to the Six Nations for 2 years, not for 1 year, for 2 years. Next 2 years are in the Six Nations. That allows them to have high-level matches for the next 2 years, improved all their skill level. I think to be fantastic. And the same down under, where they have the championship between Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Argentina. They could have teams like Uruguay, Chile, and other teams in a tier 2 competition, and Japan at the other side. Japan won as well during the week. They could have a tier 2 competition there as well, and have promotion and relegation. Australia had their win, and they have a chance. They're finished in their group now, Australia. They have all their 4 games played. If Fiji win their match, who are Fiji playing? if Fiji win their match, I didn't take note of who they're playing. If they win their game, Australia are out. Definitely 100% out. That's the way it is in that game. They're only a point or two behind them. So you get 4 points for a win, and you could get a bonus point as well. So they could get 5 points. They could pass out Australia.
Yeah.
With their match.
But,
there we are, you know.
Yeah. I saw that some reporter the other day tried to stirring the pot a little bit about Ireland and Scotland arranging it so that South Africa didn't make it through, so that Ireland could lose to Scotland and Scotland get a bonus point, and that would put South Africa
out.
Yeah. So it's you know.
Well, there'll be a lot of people watching that match for many, many reasons, as you said. Well, I looked at that as well. You know, that could happen. I mean, it could happen. I mean,
Yeah,
it could happen. Scotland have the players, the caliber of players that can do damage to you. You know.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been known to happen. You know, I mean it happened in the what was it 74 World Cup in Germany when Austria and West Germany played, and they knocked out somebody. I forget who it was that they knocked out. I think it might have been Morocco by playing to a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
And neither team would cross the halfway line.
Yeah.
You know, so it.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's you know it's and the sad part is that if you think about it, it can happen because you know it's Murphy's law. If you think about something, it's got.
I mean, you're right. If Scotland win with a bonus point, Africa are out. South Africa are gone. They're gone. They can't do anything about it themselves anyway, you know. So they're gone. Then
that would put Ireland in second place, right?
It would.
Yeah.
Playing France.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think Ireland would play for that. I think Ireland would prefer to meet the All Blacks rather than meet France in France.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, you want to avoid them as long as you can. You want to stay away from the host nation as long as you can.
Well, you do.
When they're as good as them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just interesting the conspiracy theories that people come up with and things like that. But you know.
I was watching some of the soccer. Wrexham played out a draw, and Grimsby went down in the odd goal in 3, 2-1. Your club Grimsby. I was watching. I watched soccer, the lower tier, the Division 1 and 2 as well. There's an amalgamation of a program on ITV here, which is very good.
Oh, okay.
They cover them all, which is very, very good. There's great excitement. There's some beautiful stadium down there, you know, around the country, around Great Britain. You know, there's some fantastic stadiums, you know.
Yeah.
Really, there are, you know. I really like them, the layout of them. Cambridge United have a nice stadium. I was admiring their stadium, you know.
Yeah, I just remember the old Cambridge.
You do?
And that place was not very nice, I can tell you that.
Was it like a farmer's yard, was it?
Oh yeah, it was not I mean, but it was typical of lower tier grounds from that time, all built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you know. So and most of them were standing. You had a couple of places that you'd have a main stand. I mean, the main stand at Grimsby actually came from a race course, and it had been in the north of England.
Yeah.
And it had been up there for 60 years or something.
Yeah.
Then Grimsby got it, and they put it back up in place, and it became the main stand.
Well, I'd say, as the man said, it was a bit drafty. You want your overcoat on you, would you?
Oh, I'm telling you that. I'm telling you, you know, how things didn't happen back then. No. You know, you could walk under the stand at Grimsby, and the amount of paper that was on the ground, littered on the ground, would be so deep that if any, I mean, you remember the tragedy at Bradford City?
Bradford, I do, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, that same thing could have happened at Grimsby Town because it was all wooden. It was an all wooden.
Yeah, you could throw away, as they say in the old days, a stray cigarette.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was it. Because people, you're talking about structures that was primarily timber and not plastic, but perspex and stuff like that had be gone up like a shot. Just like the tragedies in the nightclub in Spain over the weekend. My God,
Yeah.
to see all them going up in flame.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Stardust. The Stardust inquiry is still going on here. You know.
I saw that. Yeah, I see that from time to time. But I mean, all these grounds were built very similarly. Like our one at Grimsby was the same as Bradford. There was only one way in, and that was from the front up, and there was no fire escapes at the back or anything like that. So
it's the same with the old tenement buildings and the old blocks, apartment blocks that were built in the 60s and 70s. There's no fire escape. If you're up on the 5th floor, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
There's no back way down or anything like that.
No, no.
There we go. Now, we look forward to that's a nice scenario. Now, we're not saying that Ireland and Scotland are after contacting each other at all. No suggestion like that. But we will watch the game with extra interest on Saturday night. It's on Ireland versus Scotland. I think Ireland will be professional enough. Ireland will want to win their group. They'll want to win their group and go out as winners, and they'll meet the All Blacks in the quarterfinal, I think. Is it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think without a doubt. I mean, because nobody at this stage wants to lose. You know, go into a knockout stage of a tournament, losing a game. You know, that just does not sit well with you. You just want to maintain momentum as much as you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the UK snooker tournament was on for snooker fans over the weekend, and the evergreen Mark Williams, who's from the same era as Ronnie O'Sullivan. Ronnie O'Sullivan skipped the event, so Mark Williams met Mark Selby in the final, and he beat him 10-7. Now, Mark Williams was the second oldest winner of the UK championship at the age of 48. It's terrible calling people old at 48, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, but that's the way they penned it, I suppose. And the oldest was Doug Mountjoy. You remember Doug Mountjoy?
Yeah.
He was 50 plus when he won the UK. Williams won it for the third time. His first one was 1997, 2021 and 2023. Fair play to him, you know. And they're all still, all that, like Mark Williams, John Higgins, and what's his name? Ronnie O'Sullivan. They came up from the same era at the same time, you know. And to think that Ronnie O'Sullivan himself, he's in his 16, he's 30 plus years playing snooker. That's Ronnie O'Sullivan. He won the Shanghai Masters there recently as well. So, you know, I think he likes the long games. He likes these short games. It takes him a while to warm to the venue, to get into the rhythm of the game. It takes him longer, and he likes being at the table longer. So I don't. I think he's entered in for the Northern Ireland Open, which is on the end of the month, and he's won it a few times, you know. But I don't think those first to 5 or 6 doesn't suit his game. That's my opinion, you know.
Yeah.
But once his name is on the list, the starting list, the ticket sales are gone through the roof. You know, that's Ronnie O'Sullivan I'm talking about, you know. But anyway, well done to Mark Williams. And we had what his name is not on tonight, so we won't bother talking about tennis. It's not that we're not interested in tennis. I don't know enough about it myself to talk about it, to be quite honest, you know, the ins and outs of tennis. And so all I know is that the China Open is on at the moment, and Alcaraz is the highest ranked player in it, who was beaten in the US Open final by Djokovic is not competing in the China Open, Yeah, I don't think we'll see him again till December, and then his next outing I think will be in Australia in January. But Pavi, wherever you are, stay healthy. Sports user program here, and with Joe and myself, we're here every Monday night. Tell all your friends about us, and don't forget to press the red button to subscribe to our channel. Whilst we're on air, there's one Premiership game across channel, is Chelsea and Fulham, and I'm just checking the score as I'm talking to you, and it's still 2-0 to Chelsea, and it's half time now, and I think that'll move them up the table a bit. I think most managers are thinking, but as we were saying, in Rangers' case, the competition for Rangers is Celtic and vice versa in Scotland. With not being disparaging to all the other teams, they're all doing the best they can. But changing a manager this early in the season, Joe, can't this have a real detrimental effect on the team?
Oh yeah, I mean it does really. I mean,
it's his team.
It is his team, and that's part of the problem. That this is where some of the Rangers fans that I was reading about are so dispirited because they don't rate the players that he's brought in, that he's bought, and now they're going to have to try and get rid of him if they don't think they're up to scratch to be able to be competitive with Celtic. So, but we know what happens up there. I mean, for as long as we've been following Scottish football, it's Rangers go on the tear for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and then Celtic go on a tear for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and what have you. So while one is up, the other one is always, what if we should be doing this and the other. But it's just so tough to. I think that it was a bit more than just the league position of not going to win the league. I really think that the way that they looked at the team, and like I said earlier about the European games, they just didn't look, they didn't look like they were going to win anything.
No, and of course Celtic have the history of being the first British club to win the European Cup.
Yeah.
In 1967, Pele said one time that one of the most exciting players he used to love watching was Jimmy Johnston.
Yeah, well, you heard that one about Jock Stein. Got a phone call one day about Jimmy Johnston.
Oh yeah.
And got it from a club, and they said we'd like to give you 125,000 for Jimmy Johnston. And Jock Stein says, how many matches would that be for? So that was how he rated him.
Yeah.
So
fabulous player.
Yeah.
Just came in. I was reading that somewhere over the weekend, and during the week.
And I forgot actually that Jimmy Johnston came down to England and played for Sheffield United for a while.
Oh, I didn't know that, no.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
I was reading somewhere the other day about it, and it was, I'm going, really? I didn't remember that till all of a sudden it went, oh yeah, he did. So it's there was a few of them actually. Well, it was a few of them came down because Bobby Murdoch came down to Middlesbrough. John Hughes went down to Crystal Palace, I think. He went there. Willie Johnson from Rangers went down and played for Johnny Giles at West Brom.
West Brom.
Yeah. So So David Hay came down and played for Chelsea. Did his thing. I'm trying to think if any of the rest of the lads came down. Trying to think. So yeah. So but yeah, I mean that was a great Celtic team, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was in boarding school, and we had no television. It was back in the 60s, and we had a radio, all right, and stuff. But the boarding school brought in the television to watch the match. Jesus, who were they playing?
Oh, the Inter Milan, AC Milan.
AC Milan, AC
Or
Milan. Yeah.
Inter Milan, wasn't it?
But
Yeah,
Joe,
the black and blue. Because
I'm afraid it was a black and white television.
yeah, there you go.
And
And it was a funny story. You know, the guys are in the tunnel before the game,
yeah,
and I'm not sure which one. I think it might have been Jimmy Johnson told the story. He says we're looking across at these Italians. He says we're all lads from Glasgow. We're only like a stone's throw from Parkhead. You
yeah,
know, we all grew up around there and what have you. And
yeah. That was the uniqueness of that team, you know.
yeah, it was. And he says we're looking at all these fellas and they're there and they're smiling and they've got all these rows of white teeth. And he said, and half of our fellas have left their false teeth in the dressing room and what have you, and have half a mouthful of teeth. He said when they looked at us, they must have thought we were from a different planet.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, Billy McNeil that when they won that, when they at the end of the game, for what I don't know what happened, but I think they went back to the dressing room and they were coming out for the presentation and they couldn't get the team out the dressing room. So Billy McNeil came on his own and had to come through the crowd, escorted through the crowd. They couldn't get the rest of the team out the dressing room. So he had to go and lift the European Cup himself.
Go here.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you look at the history of the European Cup that it took till 1967. Of course, you had unbelievably good club teams in the 50s. You know, I'm thinking of the Stefano and Puskas team. You know, I mean, that Real Madrid team would have beaten most national teams.
Oh yeah, it was a very good team, but you know, teams from England and Scotland were not playing in the European Cup back then. The FA wouldn't allow them.
No.
Now they would play friendly matches. They'd go to Europe and play friendly matches and what have you. But they didn't want them playing in the European Cup.
Yeah.
But you know, Sting, when he was manager at Celtic, he used to take the lads and he would take them over to Europe to watch European Cup matches. And they go and watch the big clubs like Real Madrid and Inter, AC Milan, the German teams that were in it at the time. And they would go and watch those big matches in Europe. Wolves at the time, when Stan Cullis was around, they would always have big European nights at Molineux. In fact, they had, when they got floodlights at Molineux, they had I'm not sure who it was that came over to play them, but it was a European team that came to open the floodlights there. So they were always kind of going out with it, but could never do it officially, you know.
And of course, in the year after Georgie did the business for Man United in '68, you know.
Yeah.
Were they the first English club to win the European Cup?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah. And then Celtic got in the final again, was it in 71, 72?
They won, yeah.
I think that they didn't they play Leeds in the semi-final and knock Leeds out?
Not too sure that now, Joe. Your memory is a bit better than mine.
Yeah, and then they lost the final. They lost the final to Feyenoord. And I was reading about it the other day, and they kind of were a little bit overconfident. They were saying going into it, whoever wrote the article was saying we were a little bit overconfident because we'd not really heard of the Dutch teams and Feyenoord being, you know.
But they had some fine teams. They had in the 60s and 70s. They had some fine teams.
Oh yeah. I mean, I saw when we used to go to Holland every at the end of every season. We'd play in a tournament, and we'd play in two tournaments. One would be Amsterdam, and then we'd pick another tournament somewhere down the country.
Yeah.
From there, and we would go to the Olympic Stadium, and we saw the Ajax team with Cruyff and Neeskens and
all the stars,
all those guys.
Van der Kerkhoffs,
Yeah, they were playing in the semi-final of the Cup at the Olympic Stadium, and we were at the game.
Oh, good.
So yeah, so no, they had great teams at that time.
They were talking about, they were reminiscing on the radio during the week. It must have been either the anniversary of his death, George Best, or his birthday. I don't know which it was. I didn't get the start of the program. But people, almost to a person who came on, all said about George Best. He was a thorough gentleman to meet. Very courteous, very understated, not very blind. And, didn't want to be the center of attention, And never want to be center of attention. But they said, anybody that saw him playing, they said, really and truly, even when his health came at him, when the issues of alcohol came at him, he had that, that talent that no matter what kind of a pitch he was playing, he could glide across it, and get out of tackles. He just, that natural ability that he had. Most of the lads that were older than I was, they were reminiscing about him, said, I've never seen it replicated in any other player. And some of them were asked about Pele and things. Said Pele was a different player than George Best. You can't compare. George Best primarily was a midfield.
Well, George played in the wing.
In the wing, yeah.
It was, and I mean, I ran into, or I saw the other night, Alan Hinton, and Alan Hinton was one of those wing players as well.
Yeah.
And I remember Brian Clough talking about him, and he was talking about bravery and what have you. And he says most people think about brave players as defenders and hard tacklers and what have you. He said, but the bravest players that we have, he said, are wingers. He said, because when they're crossing the ball, fullbacks are leaving their studs up and they're raking them down their shins and they're catching them on their ankles and what have you.
They're wide open.
Yeah, and there was no protection of them back then.
Oh, absolutely not.
No protection back then. And, and that was the way it was. I mean, when George made his debut against West Brom, Graham Williams was played fullback that day against him, and he kicked the bejesus out of him.
Yeah.
And he said to him, he said that was the only time I ever got near him. Anytime I played against him afterwards, I never got nowhere near him. So, so he said he switched sides that day, and he said that was the last time I got near to him. So, but yeah, George was like that. But George was a phenomenal player. I mean, I got the chance to see him play at Leicester a couple of times.
Yeah.
When I first went there in '69, before we got relegated.
Yeah.
Got promoted again, and he was just like it was just different class. He could do everything. He could dribble, he could head, he could tackle, he could pass the ball 40 yards and put it on a dime for you. And like people were saying about him, he was the most unassuming guy.
Yeah.
He really was, and. Anybody that you've ever talked to that hung out with him. But then again, all those guys were the same way. I've met a lot of those guys from that United team. And, George used to go out with Dennis and Paddy Crand.
That's right.
For dinner on a Saturday night. And, he'd hang out with the guys. That's who it was. Tony Dunn and he were great pals. Shea Brennan. All good pals of mine, and they were all the most unassuming guys you'd ever meet. Nolly Styles, same, Bobby.
Well, I must say, not because he's from Cork, like myself, Roy Keane is the same.
Yeah.
Roy Keane doesn't want any of the fuss. The fuss that people make with photographs and reporters running down. No, don't want any of that, you know. He
No.
never, he doesn't court that, you know. Sure, what's his name? Crouch tells the story, you know, about when he signed his first serious contract,
Right.
Peter Crouch, and he went out and bought a Bentley. He was telling you, do you remember that story he was telling?
You know, I read his book.
He was on a panel with Roy Keane, and Roy Keane was nothing. He wasn't flashy at all, you know.
No.
He could buy 10 Bentleys, you know, when he was earning what he was earning. But anyway, he bought his Bentley, and he was driving down wherever he was driving down in what street, anyway, with the windows open and the elbow out the window, you know, with his Bentley and the music blaring, and he comes up to the traffic lights, and he looks over. And who's over in the other lane, right beside him? Roy. And he said the look he got from Roy Keane at the lights, you know. He said he returned his Bentley the next day. You know.
That's about about it. You know,
he said he didn't have to say anything on the look he gave me. He said he felt like a right tool altogether. Anyway,
yeah.
Joe, we have another show over, and we've come to the end of this edition of SportsView on LearMedia.tv. Press the red button and tell all your friends about us. Joe, it's been a blast again, and we'll see what pans out next weekend in the rugby, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Never know. And keep VAR for Santa Claus, you know. VAR is for Christmas, we believe, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, good sporting for the rest of the week, Joe, and it was fantastic to have you along again. And until we meet again next Monday night, from Joe Waters and myself, take care, guys. Good luck.
Good night, Pat. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye now.